People of YouTube, even though Call of Duty Modern Warfare just came out, we are going to continue with our novel. Should be the third episode if I'm not mistaken. And this is still chapter 1, we're probably going to finish that up today. I will briefly remind you what happened previously. So we have sort of two main characters. We have Ari, I guess, who is a colonel in XCOM and is based in Morocco, the Morocco base, which there's a name, like a more specific name, but I forgot what it is. And then there's his sort of commander and love interest, whose name is, let me check on the back of the book, Janelle. There you go, Janelle. So we left them, one fighting somewhere in Italy, and then the other, the commander, Janelle, sort of crying, or starting to cry, because she is to be moved to a new base that she is going to build herself, basically, in Switzerland. She, I think, is considering whether or not to take Ari with her, etc., etc., etc. So, this is, again, continuing the first chapter. It says that the light was everywhere. And for a moment, there wasn't anything else, just that and the heat, a great wash of it, a smell of hot stone and cloth and metal singeing. Singeing? I guess that's a word. Ari blinked, trying to figure out which way he was facing up. He was facing up? Down? He still couldn't see. Something grabbed him from behind. He struggled briefly, but then got a glimpse of the right color for an armored suit. Interesting way to put it. Paula, of course. She was yelling, "Get the Chris, get it." Ari blinked hard, able to see some shapes and movement now, though not much of it in the dark, in the dimness. Oh, I thought it was just light everywhere. Anyway, one of the Paula's other armored people, probably Matt, must have been carrying a rocket launcher with an incendiary round loaded. What the hell was he thinking of letting it off at such close range? Someone said that, apparently. Maybe that's his thoughts, but they're not differentiated from the rest of his speech, so I wouldn't know. I know, apparently that wasn't a... I thought that was actually... It's just a weird formatting, sorry. So I think he said that, but then someone replies, "Better fry than wind up as a host for one of those, boss," Paula said. The generic reply she gave. Ari looked around and saw what she meant. The blackened, burnt shape that had been poor Doris before a chrysalid got her now lay on the cobbles, straining and squirming like a horrible pupa. I think pupa or papa is that. I know what it is, but I don't know how it's pronounced. Of some giant moth. The seared skin split with a sound like tearing paper in a shower of thin, cerulous. What is even cerulous? Cerulous? Okay, let's figure that one out. This is that kind of, read through where I learn new vocabulary, because it's this, why not? It's good. It's an actual thing. In physiology, the term, no pronunciation, serous, fluid or serosal fluid is used for various bodily fluids that are typically pale yellow and transparent and of benign nature that fill the inside of body cavity. Oh, so like a intercellular fluid. I know what it is. Okay, cool. Still not how it's pronounced, but that's cool. Yeah, and in a shower of thin serous fluid and boiled blood, apparently, outburst another crab-like chrysalid, young and hungry. Snarling its claws snapping, it jumped right for Paula. It never saw Matt standing off to one side with something a little more suitable than a rocket launcher. The smaller autocannon incendiary rounds hit the monster. Why would you call it a monster? Stitching it in 4 or 5 places in front. Okay, so many of them hit it so close together that a pyrophoric reaction began. The chrysalid simply burst into one hot flame, burnt fiercely for a moment, and then blew itself to pieces. The pressure of the interior organs shattering the fire damaged carapace outward. Okay. Right. So it got penetrated with Willy Pete and then burned from the inside out, I guess, is how I would describe all this. But anyway, the fumes and smoke choked Ari for a moment while he shook loose of Paula. Thanks, he said. Hey, think nothing of it, Paula said as the rest of the team gathered around, all looking rather scorched around the edges, but otherwise none the worse for wear. What now, boss? Let's go help the others. They're working up towards the top of the piazza. Any more chrysalids behind us? Ari looked back the way Doris had come. Don't think so, Paul said, though she sounded doubtful. She was plainly thinking what Ari was. None of them knew how or when the chrysalid had hit Doris. We'll find out in a few days, Ari said, grim. Meanwhile, we got other problems. Plenty of our cuddly little friends up that way at the moment, and I want to make a clean sweep of them. Wouldn't mind some more light, Paula muttered, as they headed around the corner and into the square. Ari grinned and gestured to Matt, who picked up Ari's heavy plasma weapon from where it had fallen and tossed it to him. I've got an idea about that, he said. You guys, stay close to me. See the big church up top there? That's where I'm headed. Bad moment for an upsurge of religious feeling, boss, Matt said as they headed up through the square. Before Ari could answer, plasma fire rained down around them from a window up on their left. It was one of those snipers that Mihal had missed, Ari thought. Matt lifted the rocket launcher again as the others scattered. I thought Paula had the rocket launcher. He took aim, waited, fired. The front of the building fell off. I really love that, Matt said, catching up with the group as it reformed. Ari sighed. There was a great pastry shop in there. First religion, now food, Paul said, and chuckled. Boss, you're a fickle one. Religion first, come on. Okay, I don't know, there's something very unnatural about their banter, but it could be just me. Maybe I don't talk to people that much, just sit there, make videos. Maybe that's my problem. They made their way up through the square, past the now disabled alien terror ship, picking their way over burned and crushed cafe tables and chairs, and around many bodies, both human and alien. I don't know why terror ship is capital letters, but whatever. Ari was pleased enough about the response time on this one. They had been no more than 5 minutes behind the alien craft, though he would have preferred to force it down outside the city. Still, just good luck that we were in the right place at the right time. If we had come all the way up from Irhill on this run, none of this would be left. None of this would be left now. None of that either. Okay, great. That's wonderful. He glanced at the church. Muzzle flashes and the reports and billowing explosions of grenades were thick off to the right side of it, near the head of the Via Alighieri. It's so hard to read this. But there were no flashes any further down, thank God. Who's holding the corner there? He said down the comlink. By that pale-colored building. Us, boss, Roddy McGrath's voice came back. That's not how you respond, you say who you are. We've got a good bunch bottled up here, some trapped behind the big church, some others between it and the stone tit. Good. You hold them there and I'm gonna get you some light to work with. Gonna get the moon to rise this late, boss? Nice trick, said Elisabetta's voice. Not quite, just hang on. What, did they have a flare? Alright, anyway. Soldiers, they're called. All around them it began to rain white-hot fire from plasma rifles and God knew what else. Ari and his team zigzagged their way up to the piazza, and all around them shots hit the burnt-out cars and soot-covered upended cafe tables. Cobbles were kicked out of burning mortar by the plasma fire, and any stone not made of igneous? I don't know what that is. Some kind of rock, to begin with, immediately blew up, splintering with the heat. Fragments flew in every direction like some kind of primitive flechette grenade. Ari dodged and jumped and cursed when splinters glanced off of his armored legs. One struck him squarely somewhere rather more embarrassing, but there was nothing to do about it but keep running. Okay. They were getting quite close to the church, but as they approached it, the downpouring fire got so serious that Ari and his team were forced to take refuge up against the buildings on the left side of the square. They stood in front of what used to be a department store. Now wall after wall of broken plate glass and shocked-looking, blessed, denuded mannequins. So wait, they ran into enemy fire instead of like taking cover and moving that way? It's a bit weird. I don't know. They're up there, boss, Matt said, jerking his head up at the church tower. Another of the low domes with domes that seemed popular in this part of the world. No one's going to get anything done until we get that bunch killed. Ari breathed in, breathed out. Damn sectoids. On the dome, Matt was already limbering up his rocket launcher. Yep. Okay, see that rectangular bit sticking out there on the left? That's the church's chancel. Don't hit that when you fire. Make sure the debris doesn't fall on it. You got relatives in there, boss? But Matt was loading up already. I'll explain later. Just keep firing. I've got something else to do. Ari stared around him for a moment, wearing what must have looked to his team like an oddly quizzical expression. Listen, he said. Any of you have a couple of 100 lire coins? Paula, through her armor's thick faceplate, and all the rest of them from under their helmets or eye shades, looked at Ari as though he had just landed from Saturn. He looked back and after a few seconds, one after another, and with all kinds of bemused expressions, they began to check their pockets. Got $1. I've got 80 dirhams, 50 francs, and a Kenyan shilling. Who takes money with them on a mission? Like, I know aliens and stuff, right? Unreal, made up, fiction. Yeah, I get it. No one carries money on a combat mission inside their armor. I don't know, maybe, again, but I'm not an XCOM soldier, so I don't know. What do I know? Sorry, boss, I don't usually bring my wallet on these shindigs, someone said. Thank God someone had that idea. I always figure somebody else pay for the drinks. Never mind, I said, I'll fake it. Matt, start firing. The rest of you cover me, too. Okay, yeah, that's not where that sentence should end. Anyway, don't you stop until you know when. And he shouldered his heavy plasma and plunged off across the piazza towards the church's bronze doors. Wow, okay. I probably need therapy after reading this book. They were not his main objective, but they were where the best cover was, under the massive arched tympanum sheltering the main doors. No fire could reach him from above. Assuming he could reach the tympanum, which is probably an architectural feature. Behind him, a number of indiscreet burping noises, like a giant paying the price for bolting his nachos, Jesus, suggested that Matt was getting into his assignment. Above and behind Ari, a burning stone and ancient brick leaped away from the dome. Above the noise of the explosions, he thought he heard a couple of screams in the little high voices of sectoids. Good, he muttered to himself. There was something particularly satisfying about shooting sectoids, with their sinister looks like dark-eyed elfin children. Elfin, as in like elven? Maybe. Stolen and turned into something sinister and deadly. Ari paused by the last street corner across from the brick walls of the church, getting his breath for the big run across the exposed space. You guys in the back, he muttered down the link. Why would that be muttered? Anyway. The light is coming up. I expect you to drive all your targets down into the piazza. Matt, when you finish with the dome, you and Roddy's bunch get ready to turn all your attention to the middle of the piazza, between the church and the tomb. About 30 seconds. Ready? Acknowledgements came from one team leader after another. Matt, Ari said, hammer it, and he ran out into the open. The sectoid snipers above had little time to get off more than 2 or 3 volleys of plasma bolts before Matt's really serious attack on them began. Jesus Christ. The old brick cornices around the dome practically leapt into the air, raining down into the piazza. Missed the chancel. Ari thought as he ran desperately, zigzagging again for the shelter of the church's tympanum. 30 yards, 20. He was under in cool black shadow, looking out into the night only occasionally, lighted by weapon flashes and explosions. Ari paused, listening to the tempo and ferocity of the fire increasing from the back of San Vitel's church, as the other team started to drive their assailants around front. Better move now. Better they come around the church and find you right out there in the... Better move now before, they come around the church and find you right out there in the middle of things. Ari sucked in one last deep breath. Oh, odd. Now, how sweet those frantic breaths could taste when you weren't sure you were ever going to get another one. He ran for it. Up the piazza and to his right, across the empty space, and towards the massive iron grille gates of Galla Placida's mausoleum. Explosions in the night, shouts of the living, snarl of the dying, the sounds of alarms and excursions everywhere. But nothing came close to him. None of the flying fire came to lodge in his flesh. Ari came up against the iron grille with a clang, seized it, shook it, locked. After hours, no way to get in and under cover. Never mind. Ari made his way over to the right of the grille. There it was, the plain little steel box fastened to the gate, with its stenciled message. Luminatio automatico and 200, which I don't know how it is in Italian, liras. So, this is before euros, guys. Yay. Automatic illumination. Okay, anyway. Ari shook his head with a look both bemused and grim. Sorry, guys, he said, and unslung his heavy plasma. With the greatest possible care in this darkness, he shot one corner of the box off. Heat and stink of molten metal and scorched paint flew up in his face. Ari choked and waved the smoke away, then bent and felt about at his feet. Oh shit. About half the coins that had fallen out of the coin box were molten, and lay scattered around in the little pale puddles on the pavement. Goddamn gun. After a moment, though, he found one of the last fallen 100-lire coins, which was still intact, and then another. Alright, he said, and straightened. He put them into the coin slot on the top of the box, praying that he hadn't destroyed anything important. One coin in, push the plunger, the second coin in, push the plunger, and wait, and wait. Then sudden glory, as though the sun had come up in the piazza. A blaze of pinkish-colored sodium wafer light burst out from the 10 different sources, so that the front of the mausoleum and the front of San Vitel's church and the piazza in between them turned into a shining space, burning in the red of brick and sandstone, the white of anciently quarried marbles. The town council had really done themselves proud on this lightning installation, as Ari had remarked to Janelle not too long before. The spotlights were set up on some of the buildings surrounding the piazza, and some were set into the ground in front of the mausoleum and in front of the church, turning the whole area in a blink from a dark and dangerous open space into a well-lit shooting gallery for his people. A space now abruptly filling with aliens being forced into it, for the people had taken him at his word when he told them 30 seconds. Why is this light not on by default, though? Is that because there's not enough electricity in Italy in this fictional book? Maybe. He took a moment now to shoot this chain and lock off the grill door in front of the mausoleum so that he could tuck himself into the low arched doorway there and fire from cover. There was almost no need, for all hell was breaking loose out in the middle of the piazza. Plasma and laser blasts turned the air from 4 different directions. Grenades flew and stun rods crackled. Stun rods crackled? What? They were engaged at them at distance at the same time they were doing melee? Anyway. So, the stun rods crackled and zapped. In the midst of chaos, stately and gleaming, the architecture of Byzantine Rome looked calmly. Byzantine Rome. What's Byzantine Rome? Anyway. Down on the carnage. This Sonnet Lumiere. Part of the operation lasted no more than another 5 minutes, and finally the firing started to die away. The grenades exploding no more. It was just as well, for after 6 minutes, as Ari knew would happen, the lights went off again. You only got so much light for 200 lire, I guess is the English pronunciation of the word. He sighed, chuckled, and went out to the fallen coin box to get another couple of coins. When the lights came back on, his teams were beginning to reassemble in the piazza, taking stock of the aliens they had stunned and captured alive. There were some mutants dumped in a muscly heap like a bunch of green-skinned professional wrestlers, and a sectoid leader, semi-conscious and lying helpless like a drugged child while being secured. Others of the teams were assessing their own casualties. One of Roddy's team was dead, his head blown off. Michal had a bad leg burned from a plasma rifle, self-cauterizing as usual. But there was always the danger that the victim would go abruptly into shock. Fortunately, Michal showed no such signs as yet. He was pale, but hanging on all right, and wouldn't make it home to Irhel without too much trouble, Ari judged. "Nice job, you people," Ari said to them as they gathered around him. "Nice job. Her Nibs is going to be seriously pleased with us when we get home. We got all the crystalids, you sure?" Who's Her Nibs? Anyway, the teams gathered around him were nodding. "Not that many in this batch, boss," Roddy said. "I'm sure we got them all." "Okay, call home and have them send up a stripping team for this terrorist ship. We'll take the important stuff with us. Paula, go in with another suit and get the Illyrium out of that thing. The usual pickup on discarded weapons. Take anything big or obvious, then post a guard. The strippers can salvage the rest, and they should be here before the rest of the town turns out for souvenirs or pick up a little bargain. Anything else need doing?" Heads shook all around. "Nice job," Ari said again. "We saved the world again tonight. Let's clean up here and then go home and have our dinner." The teams began to disperse, going about their tasks. A few stayed with Ari for several moments. "Nice trick that," Elizabeth said, "with the light. How'd you know that was there?" Ari smiled, thinking of Janelle's face in the light of a little wavering candle in a glass out here in the piazza not too long ago. He also thought that there were some things a team commander should keep to himself. "Hey," Ari said, "when you go somewhere new in Europe, don't you read the Michelin guide first? You're missing all the good stuff. Get the green one." Isabella snickered. She and Matt and the others stood a little longer with Ari, just breathing the air, all quiet now with the particularly terrible silence that falls after a firefight. "Whose church is this, boss?" Matt said, looking up into the church's tympanum, which was no longer shadowy. Up in the arched ranks of carved, brightly painted and gilded saints, choirs of angels, and herds of fabulous beasts looked down at them with incurious eyes. I wonder if that's where the author did all the research in the Michelin guide. Anyway, it's really something. Various people had a hand in building it, but most of this work was the Empress Theodora's originally. Ari couldn't help but smile. Theodora had been the religious type only insofar as it served her purpose, but when she built a church, she built one. "No, I mean, what saint?" "Oh, Saint Vitalis," Ari said. Matt blinked. "Something to do with barbers, right?" "Matt," Ari said with great affection, "you are living proof of a triumph of a popular culture and the decline of the classical education. As though it matters while we're having an alien invasion. Come on, let's get all our people together and go home." And that's chapter number 1. I think we'll stop here. This was quite grueling for me, and I'm sure also for you. So my apologies, for putting you through this, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.